An elven warrior trapped on modern-day Earth. Two friends with different destinies meet at a magical school. These are some of the stories we at Electric Lips Comics are working on. You can get your copies of both The Mana Chronicles and Tales of Mithril at elpmerch.com. Support independent creators. Explore the merch featuring exciting ELP Comics art with a wide range of designs. Electric Lips Comics. Imagination electrified.
Welcome everyone to another Conversations in the Void. I'm your host, Graveyard, joined as always with my off-screen producer, Salem. Make sure to say hi to him. Here with our Season 2, Episode 2 kickoff, I am pleased to introduce director, producer, and cinematographer with works including Redrum, Horror at the Cecil Hotel, and Separation. Please welcome to the Void, the one and only Leland Krane.
Hello.
How you doing tonight?
Good to be here.
Yes. We had a little chat before this, and I have super excitement to hear about this, but let's get into really more about you as a short introduction here. So, Leon, what really brought you into the world of film as a whole?
Well, I was primarily interested in storytelling. I went to school for creative writing, and I came to New York, and I had a play produced off Broadway. And I realized after that experience that cinema was really a better spot for me, and went to a 2-year film program, but only did one semester and just had to get out there and start shooting and start working and work my way up from carrying sandbags to becoming a director of photography, which took a long time. And I had a lot of sore muscles for many years. But I learned from the bottom up, which I think is something that doesn't happen a lot, but is important. If you're the head of the crew, you kind of got to know what everybody's doing, and that's what you see like out of really great directors like Jonathan Nolan and Dave Fincher. Like, they may not have done everything, but they know how everything works on the set, and I think that can be really important, especially when you're working in a low budget. Because you have to know that you don't have to do everybody's job, but you have to know how that job is done and make sure that they're doing it correctly.
Right. Yeah, I completely get that. I work with an independent horror team called Horror Dads, and we do whatever we need to do to make the film happen. Right. It's exactly what you said. You have to be able to jump in and do the work. You have to get sweaty, because it's not an easy process making a show or film.
No, it's hard on every level. Like, it's hard when you don't have any money, and it becomes hard in a different way when there is a lot of money. There's a lot of voices like telling you what to do, and you have to sort of synthesize everything. And that's what I learned about directing really early on when I was like doing like some commercials and stuff. I had one job where we had two clients. One from the Food Network and one from a chicken company, Tyson Chicken, and they didn't like each other, like these two clients. So we put them in different rooms with different video villages, and we had people on walkies giving me information from each of them. And so I had to satisfy both clients who didn't talk to each other, like they wouldn't be in the same room. So it's that kind of thing that like people ask me like, oh, what's directing like? And it's like, well, it's sort of like getting everybody to be happy, and that's not always yourself. It's mostly making a lot of choices and compromises. And I do a lot more cinematography than I do directing, but I think that in both situations, figuring out where you can make compromises and where you really should hold the line and say, no, this is right, and you'll be happy later when you see this, or when you see it put together. You're going to thank me later, because you can't always make people happy on the spot, because they may not be able to see what you see because of experience.
Right. And I think that's good, as you talk about, having that director role, and a lot of people call it babysitting. You know,
Yeah, you have to babysit the clients, and in when it's a big production, you have multiple levels of clients too that have to be satisfied. You might have a studio, you might have a production company, you might have a showrunner who is, you know, managing that whole project, and they may have different ideas than the production company, and you may have to like help them sort their differences out with what you do.
Right. Yeah, because I think that everyone kind of has their own vision in their heads of how they want it to go. And with you working the camera, you have to get their vision on the film.
Exactly. And that's always been like my mantra is like, I don't have, people go, oh, what's Leland's look or style? It's like, I don't have one. If I had one, I wouldn't be a real cinematographer. I would just be making the same thing over and over again. I want to be able to synthesize whatever it is that director I'm working with has in their head and what their sensibilities are, and offer them different options, and then come up with something that works for them and also satisfies my creative understanding of the project. And that's, you know, that's always a balancing act, and that's where you find out whether you're going to be able to work with the director, you know, over and over again, is whether you're able to make those choices decisively and quickly and execute them. Because, you know, it's one thing to like make a decision, but you got to make a decision and execute it too. So within the resources that you have.
Yeah, because you can't just film all day, every day. You have to call it and make the best take you can.
Exactly. And you have to make your day and make your stars look good. That's the most important thing. Make sure you make your day. If you don't get everything in the can, you're going to get fired. And that could be as a role as a director of photography, anywhere along AD. The first heads to roll are usually the AD and the cinematographer. Basically, you know, your heads are on the chopping block all the time, because you're the AD's in charge of time management, right? They work for the producers, and they have to schedule the shoot and make sure that everything is in place in order to shoot it. And the cinematographer, because they manage the camera department and the lighting department, which is one of the most time-consuming things,
right?
Their head's always on the chopping block too, because that lighting takes time. No matter what, even if you're using available light, you have to make adjustments. You have to choose the angle right. You have to really, you know, and you know, even like the sort of mumblecore type movies, you still have to make decisions and you know, choose the angles so that the light works. And sometimes that involves making compromises with the actors, where they may not want to stand near the window during a particular thing, but you know, like that's the only light in the room coming from the window, so you have to block it that way. So that everybody, it's a big series of compromises. Filmmaking, you know, when it's a script, it's in its ideal form. It's like it's like a gem, and then when you start unpacking it, it becomes very, very sloppy. It's a messy type of business to make a movie.
Yeah, right. And is that kind of why you hold to the mantra that you call yourself essentially product or camera system agnostic? Because you have to be able to adapt to everything that you just said.
Yeah. I mean, that is one thing I always say is like, I want to choose the right camera system, the right lighting approach for the movie that I do. It's not about like I like this camera or I like that camera. It's what's the right camera for this job. It might be different. And you know, I'm talking to one guy about a horror movie in the Pacific Northwest, and based on the logistics he's told me about, we're going to be like camping out in the woods. So we need a camera that's not going to fail. Like we need something robust. And even though you'd think my first instinct would be like, well, you want something lightweight. No, I'm going to have a crew. I'll have like 5-6 people working with me. I'll have an AC, I'll have a gaffer, I'll have a grip. I'll have some people. So the weight is not as important as its stability and reliability. Because when we're out in the woods and like, let's say we do a 3-day, we're trek out to somewhere and shoot for 3 days out in the woods with like a generator where we don't have access to going back to get another camera.
Right.
Maybe I don't want to be out there with a Blackmagic camera that it might overheat and cause a problem. And then, unless I take two.
Right. Yeah.
Or three. So yeah, for me, like that's the situation where reliability of the camera is most important. There are other situations where I might want a really small, lightweight camera for the purposes of the size of location or the way I want to work with the actors, and that they need the freedom to not be to be working with something. Maybe who knows? I mean, there are all kinds of considerations. So yeah, that's definitely true.
And I like that. With the team that I'm part of, we each have our own camera. We each have different cameras too. We have a Canon. I have a Blackmagic myself, so I just picked that up earlier this last year, and it's nice that we get to see different things.
I just picked on it because I had one overheat on me at one point. I also had a Canon overheat on me at one point too, and like burn out doing a reenactment show, and it was totally toast. Like it was unrepairable. It had to be completely trashed just because of heat. So there is a level of like you get what you pay for with those cameras. A lightweight small camera has its drawbacks because it doesn't have as much way to dissipate heat. Right? It doesn't have the fan inside. It just has a heat exchange, like a little radiator to get rid of the heat, and so that can be a problem, or it may not function under very cold conditions. I haven't tested the camera in very cold conditions, but I've worked with the Blackmagic cameras quite a bit for various things. I did actually kind of a short black and white horror film in Maine with one Blackmagic camera, like about 4 years ago. So.
Okay. Yeah, I'm excited because our goal with our show and the production team that we're doing is to shoot a movie in every state, set in that state too. So, like in April, we're going to Connecticut to do our next movie.
Cool. So you do 50 movies.
Yeah,
or maybe 51 if Trump buys Canada.
Exactly. Exactly. Before we get into kind of more meat and potatoes here, I do have questions from chat I want to get to. Someone from another channel I do is you worked on Spirited in VFX. Did you work with Curtis Corona?
No, I don't think I did. I worked on the plate unit in New York because that film was set in New York, but it was shot in Boston. So we had to do all the background plates for everything when he's flying through the city. And that was really interesting experience because we used LiDAR cameras and to create 3D models of Manhattan. And we shot everything from 55 stories or higher over the course of several nights. And the reason we need those plates, the motion plates, are when they build the 3D environments of a building, sometimes there are lights going on and off and like people cleaning in a window or something. That's what gets placed in with the motion video that gets placed into the 3D world that they create. Now, that's not always the case. Sometimes they just use straight up the stuff we shoot. But there was some requirements. We shot that with a Venice 6K camera to get as much resolution as possible. And in most cases, you're just shooting very clean images when you shoot plates, backgrounds, because they can mess with it later in post. So you give them the asset. Generally speaking, if you have to shoot plates, backgrounds, you want to create that asset in as clean a format as possible.
Yeah, I've never heard of using LiDAR for camera work. That's really interesting.
Yeah, we had those cameras that just shoot like a 3D, like wireframe. That's what they create in the computer, and then also like still cameras that were just shooting like every single angle from that top. And we did some cool things too, where we put the camera out over like slid it. We had a good safety team with us, but we couldn't figure out how to get the camera out over the edges of the building, looking straight down. We wanted for one scene it has to look straight down. And so we wound up getting the camera on a slider, and we put the slider out over the edge of the building and just slid the camera out over the edge of the building, so it's looking straight down. And the thing that was weird about it is suddenly the camera's not at exactly like the right cant. So we were able to like adjust the cant with this thing called a tango head and take out the sort of because basically when you did that out of the corner of the building, you're looking at the street like this, and we were able to like adjust it so it would be more like that. So we felt like we were looking straight down. Wow. That was really fun.
Yeah. Yeah. See, this is why I like doing the show. I love learning behind the scenes stuff like that too. It's just, I'm very intrigued by how movies get made and everything that goes into it. And, you know, the technology you guys have to do and the stuff that you have to make yourself just to make the shots happen is impressive.
I mean, what's really cool about filmmaking, and like we can get to talk about separation if you want later, but one of the things that was in that movie is there's this sort of effect where it feels like water, but in that movie, the sort of watery feeling is more like a blood feeling, like a pool, like pools of blood. And the guy that I was working with, he had worked on Stargate, and in Stargate, they walk through this, you know, kind of ring, and the ring is like a pool, but it's vertical. Just in case people haven't seen it, but I mean, I'm sure they have. And I asked him, like, how did you do that? How did you do that water effect on the people's faces? And he said, oh yeah, we use Mylar. Mylar is just a reflective, lightweight material that we bang the light into, and you stretch it out, and then you stretch it out, but it's not tight, it's kind of loose, and then you flap it around, and that, you know, you've got like, you know, $500,000 worth of camera equipment, and you got a 20-cent piece of Mylar that is the shot that's making, you know, it look like water. The only drawback is that it's noisy. So you have to figure out a way around that. In some cases, they'll put like a something in front of it, like that's clear, so that the noisy part is far enough away from the set. In Stargate, whenever they go through the thing, there's always this sounds anyway. So they were able to get, you know, whatever, and they're yelling, like, because it's so loud, right? When they're standing really close to the gate. Yeah. Probably they're yelling because you wouldn't be able to hear them except because over the Mylar shaking, because it like a crinkly imagine the inside of a candy bar wrapper. Okay. Right? Yeah. That's what Mylar is. It's that silvery material, and if you shake it around, it's going to make a lot of noise. So that's one little like kind of cool behind the scenes thing that you get to know. And we used that back when before I started shooting, I used to gaff a lot of music videos. Okay. I did music videos for the Wu-Tang Clan and Black Sheep and Little Kim and Elton John, and they loved that effect, that shimmery, and we used to call it the shimmery Mylar effect. And you know, the rappers would ask for it. They'd be like, get that shimmery effect, man. We want that. We'd be like, okay, cool, we'll do that. Yeah. That's awesome. Like I said, you know, for me, I love Stargate, and just learning that piece of the information. That was my first tattoo I ever got, was the symbol of Earth from the chevron on my back. Wow, that's cool. Yeah, no, I love that movie, and I watched all the various incarnations of the shows. Just a really fun concept. Yeah, that's awesome. But you mentioned separation. Let's get into that a little bit. You know, okay. So what was that like working? Because that was, you said it was a more of an indie budget movie. Yeah. Correct? Well, I mean, when I say indie, it was all told, it was like $6 million. So it was, you know, Brent, the director, had done, I think it was The Devil Inside, and then The Boy, which was really successful. And then he launched this separation movie, which was didn't wind up being very successful, but it was on his way to doing a $12 million budget. It was kind of like a stepping stone for him, I guess. Okay. I got hired very last minute as the A camera operator, and I was working with another DP who lasted only 5 days. And then he either quit or got fired or whatever. But I got a phone call in the morning saying, guess what? You're the DP now. And I said, well, wait a minute. Does that mean like I'm finishing the movie? Like I'm taking over? Because I haven't even had a conversation with the director. Like we haven't even talked. Like I've operated the camera on set and he said, yeah, I like that. Or that's good. Or, can we do one more? But that was the extent of any conversation I had with him.
Okay.
Said, maybe I should get together with him and talk. And they're like, there's no time for that. You just got to start shooting the movie. So we were in a brownstone in Manhattan, and we basically shot between that day and the next day. We shot like 20% of the movie because there was a lot of dialogue in those two locations that we were in. And then they brought in a DP that had shot Stargate and Independence Day, Walter Lindenlaub. And so I got to work as his A camera operator. And then I became his second unit DP also, because basically we were so behind from that first DP who wasn't doing his job that we had to shoot like multiple sets next to each other. So we would build a set, like the production design would build a set, and then he would say, okay, go light the next set. I'll shoot this one while you're lighting that one. And then I would go, okay, we're ready whenever you are. And he'd be like, okay, we got to just finish this scene. He'd finish shooting the scene. Then he'd come over and tweak whatever I did and then shoot that. And I'd go light the next scene. So it was like a hopscotch thing.
Yeah.
Great experience working with that guy. I mean, it was really edifying for me because, like, for example, that Mylar effect had already been something that I had done before. And so I didn't feel like, oh, this guy's way out of my league or something like that. I just felt like, oh, yeah, this is how we do it. Like, this is, so that was a really, really great experience. I'm sorry the movie didn't do so well. I kind of liked it, but I understand what fans had a problem with it. It wasn't really that scary. And it sort of promised something in its setup that it didn't really deliver. And so I get it why they weren't really happy with it. But anyway.
Yeah. I mean, horror fans, especially someone who does a horror podcast like myself, people like what they like and don't like what they don't like. But there's always a horror movie, or really a movie that has fans somewhere, I feel. Yeah,
probably. There probably are fans of that movie. I mean, I'm sure there are. But it did cost $6 million to make. So
yeah,
I don't think they made their money back, or maybe they did.
Yeah, we are micro budget indie horror that I work with. So, but yeah, it's great to but it's great to hear a movie get made, because how many movies don't get made?
Most of them.
Yeah. I said what, maybe 10% actually get made.
Oh, I don't know. I mean, whenever I'm talking to people about like how getting their movie off the ground, and I talk to a lot of people with independent films. I just tell them, like, be patient, because like even a movie like, I give them an example of like Michael Clayton took 9 years to get off the ground, Oscar winning movie. It just sometimes takes a long time to get everybody on board. And it's important that you have that stamina when you're raising money. Especially if you are doing it on a bigger budget, right? Because you have to get all these people behind you. On the indie budgets, maybe you can get that movie going, if it's like $100,000, maybe you can get that movie going in 6 months.
Right.
But, be patient, make your decisions wisely along the way, and, keep your vision, and, just be patient, because it's going to take a lot of time.
Right. Yeah. And I get that, and it's great. And let's go into your kind of directing here. Talk about the horror at the Cecil Hotel.
Yeah,
that you directed it.
Yeah, I got to direct. I've been shooting a lot of reenactment shows, like the sort of murder porn on Discovery ID back then. And then they asked me, they said, like, you're kind of a little overqualified to be shooting these anymore, but do you want to direct? And I said, yeah, sure. So they gave me a trilogy of horror stories told about this creepy Cecil Hotel in the Skid Row section of Los Angeles. And so, like, one of the stories about Alyssa Lamb was her suicide there was some question whether it was actually Dark Water, the movie Dark Water, that she got the idea for the suicide from. She wound up in a tank of water on the roof of the hotel, and nobody could figure out how she got there. And ultimately, it was figured out that she committed suicide. But but the story leading up to that and what went into the detective work is what made our story. And then we had two other pretty interesting stories as well. One about Richard Unterweger, who was a serial killer that stayed at the hotel, and he was researching Robert Rodriguez, or is it Ramirez?
I think it's Ramirez. Yeah,
Ramirez. Yeah, who was the Night Stalker, a serial killer that he researched ostensibly for a publication he was writing for in Austria, but in actuality, he was just sort of following in that guy's footsteps because he was a fan, and he was just killing women on the street, prostitutes mostly. So, and then he had everybody fooled. He had the authorities fooled. They took him on ride-alongs. The police took him on ride-alongs to see where Ramirez killed women, and he went right back there and killed someone else.
Yeah, that's amazing. Like, you hear the horror stories. Now, did you know about the hotel before doing that?
No, I didn't know anything about it. There were basically two trilogies they made. One about the murder mansion, which a guy built specifically so he could kill people right around the time of the World's Fair.
H.H. Holmes in Chicago. Yes,
exactly. And so it was about that, the murder castle and the Seafood Hotel. And so we had two directors working on two trilogies, and we alternated. We shot one murder hotel and one castle, and then back and forth. So yeah, we used the same crew for both projects, and so we could keep it together for six episodes, which is always like the most efficient way, is like try and keep your once you have a good staff, you keep them together for a stretch. Like if you were doing, just 3, it wouldn't make sense. So doing 6, like a mini series, made a lot more sense. So yeah, that was a really fun project. I enjoyed doing that. I got to work with an Estonian DP who was really, really great too. Oh boy, you better look up his name because he's going to be mad that I forgot his name right now. Anyway, he was fantastic. So which is always like a thing that might be intimidating for some DPs, to be working with a director who was a DP or worked as a DP. That can be a little intimidating because they might be all over your stuff, right? I tried not to be as much as possible, and he did a great job. He kept it really simple. He gave me a lot of time to work with the actors and to get the story across and get as many angles as I needed. And yeah, it was a great experience.
And was it weird for you being the director and not doing the shooting yourself?
No, not really, because it's not that big a jump as long as you're good with people and you're comfortable talking to the actors. And I don't think it's that big a jump from being a DP to being a director in that world, at least in the world of reenactment shows, because let's face it, reenactment shows are not so much about like heavy acting performances, right? I don't have to get like an actor to cry. I don't have to get like some really deep emotional performance. It's about telling the story, and a lot of that story is told with voiceover also. So that's a little easier lift for a director, at least starting out. I'd be very intimidated if you gave me an indie movie script and said like, here, this is what you're directing. I'd probably be fine, but I'd have to call a lot of friends and say, what do I have to do here? It's a lot of making decisions, and a lot of times you don't have the answer. You just got to kind of go with what you feel best, and also turn to people that you trust and say, what do you think? And in a lot of cases that is your DP, because that's the other, along with your production designer and maybe your costume designer, makeup artist, in case of horror movies that use a lot of heavy special effects makeup. Those are your creative team, and you have to be on the same page with them. And you may turn to them and say, I'm not sure, like, if we want this so much shadow on this person because you want to see the blood. And then they may say, no, it's better if you don't see it. Like, like horror is really a lot about what you don't see,
right?
Rather than what you see. So having those kind of conversations with your creative team is really important, and being able to trust them and know that you're all trying to make the best film or TV show or project you can. You're all there to serve the story and the script. You're not your own reel or your own, like, oh, this will be cool because I do something different. You're there to serve the project, and that's one important thing you have to take to everything you do, is to serve the project.
Yeah, and I like that because with the like I said, the team I'm part of, it's 3 of us in this part of the country, the east side of the country. But we take out any role we can, but we work with the same DP, with the same people. What we change primarily are the actors. We go get, it's like, so we're going to Connecticut and we get the local actors in the Connecticut area just to work with different talent that way too. But yeah, we've been building this core team over a number of years now.
And you don't have to pay for their hotels too.
Right. That too.
It's a lot of people that work that way. If you look at Wes Anderson or Woody Allen, they always work with the same group of or David Mamet. Like, they all work with the same group of actors and the same producers over and over again. And the DP, usually they'll do like 2 or 3 films with the same DP, and then maybe they'll have a different DP, either that person's not available or they want to like a very different approach, something that but like Bob Yeoman has shot like all the Wes Anderson movies, so like, if it works, just don't fix it. Right.
Yeah, I completely agree. So Leland, in your career, what has been, to your recollection, the hardest scene for you to shoot? Do you recall?
The hardest scene?
Yeah.
Oh boy. I mean, it's probably something that I did that had a lot of technical issues to deal with, like something that had like a plate, some sort of effect, some sort of like thing that we had to do over and over again till we got it exactly right. But I don't know, some hard things. I tend to not to remember what's hard, but what was cool and interesting, and like when we made something out of nothing. Like I always remember like doing a little behind the scenes. Remember the DVDs? Like one of the first 35 millimeter films I shot was like part of it was right by the elevated train, and the elevated train in New York was kind of a big deal in that film. Like, it was kind of a important thing. And so we didn't have an ability to like have a special effect create the look of that train going by with the sparks. So we took a mirror box, it's called. You just take a box, 1 by 1 by 1 cube, and you put mirrors on all 4 sides, and you put it on a little gimbal so it spins.
Okay.
And you bang a light into it, and every time it goes around, it throws light, off the mirror. And so that created that rhythmic effect. And then basically we have that going all the time. And then we just put a flag in front of it as the train goes away. It just gets further and further away and dim down the light. And so really, really low-fi, low-tech things are what I tend to remember, because, you don't always have the resources, and sometimes you have to make stuff up on the spot, and you'd be like, oh, okay, let's, it's always better if you can plan it in advance, but sometimes you're like, okay, let's try that mirror box. Maybe that'll work. And it's great when it does. And it's super convincing. Like, we did this one, that was one of the most difficult shots. It was like a dolly shot where a guy's lying in bed, and there's that effect of the train going by, hitting him, and he gets up and he walks out towards the camera. The camera keeps pulling back as he goes and sits down in a chair and lights a cigarette, and he's about to decide whether he's going to shoot up or not. He's like a former junkie.
Okay.
So he's trying to make that decision, and as he's sitting down, the background, there's a window, and the real train has going by. We planned it so that we knew when we moved from that room where the fake train that we created, we planned it so the timing would land upright when he has to make this decision, that train goes by in the background. So like that was a really challenging shot that took us like maybe 8 takes to get, and every time we did a take, it was another half hour till there was a train. So we had something else to shoot while we were waiting for that next train to come by. We didn't do 10 takes. We probably did 3. But that was like a really challenging shot. That was on my like first 35 millimeter feature. So, you know, obviously a long time ago, but
hoping that the trains were on time.
Yeah. I mean, whenever they were, it was like 4 a.m. Because it had to be dark outside too. So,
wow.
It was whenever that train went by, elevated train in Queens, I think the N train or the R train that went right by the location. So it was perfect. Like we chose it just so we could see that train out the window, but it had to go by during the take
at night.
Yeah.
Wow.
So not that many.
Yeah, you only have so many takes in a day to do that.
I mean, and like I said, like it was like a half an hour at least between takes. So we had that set up, and then we had something else set up like in a different room that we could run and shoot while we were waiting for that next train. And then we'd have to go back and say, okay, it's probably coming soon. We didn't have like a train schedule, you know,
right.
It was a subway train. So there's no, at that time anyway, there was no like Google Maps that could tell you like, oh, the next train's coming in 5 minutes. It was sort of, well, okay, the last one came 20 minutes away. So like the next one's probably 30 minutes. So let's take 20 minutes and go do this and come back.
Yeah, that working with real time things that you don't control sounds like a pain.
Yeah, that was difficult. Like anytime you have something that you don't control, it's an issue. It's something you have to deal with.
Yeah, we had that when we were filming something last year that we were shooting on an abandoned town that was on a river, you know, real abandoned town, real river. Well, we're doing this at night, but you had people that were fishing at like 2 a.m. going down the river and shouting and stuff like that. Well, we're supposed to be like in a very abandoned place. And it's just like we thought we were safe at 2 a.m. on the river, but no.
I did a movie as a gaffer, one of the early ones in New York City with a guy named Damon Lichtenstein, and it was a $500,000 budget. And the next movie he did was 50,000 miles, 30,000 miles, 50,000 miles to Graceland. The Elvis Presley impersonators robbing banks or robbing a casino. And so I talked to the producer who produced both. And I said, what was the difference in working on a $500,000 movie and $50 million movie? And he said, well, remember when we were shooting a $500,000 movie and the guy came out on the stoops with the boombox and blasting it, and we had to give him $20 to turn it off? Well, this was the same thing, only we had to bribe someone at the Wynn Casino to let us fly a helicopter at lower than it was supposed to, but we'd give him, $50,000. So
right.
The bribes were bigger, but it was the same thing. It was just a matter of like, you have to make it work somehow. And
right.
Like, just throwing people money is going to solve the problem. So that was it. Like more trucks, more people, but it's the same thing, no matter what level you're on. And that's the thing to remember too. I think when you're doing low budget movies, don't be intimidated by the budget. Like if things go, like if you get on a bigger project, it's the same skills. Everything translates. It's just more people rather than dealing with your gaffer and that's it. You're dealing with your gaffer and their team. Dealing with, instead of just one makeup artist for special effects, you're dealing with the key makeup artist and their team. You might have like a part of the team that's doing prosthetics and a part of the team that's doing squibs or blood. You might have part of the team that's doing something else. So you might not be able to know everybody, but that's okay. You know the people that you need to interface with, and they know their teams.
Yeah, the leads.
Exactly.
That's interesting, because with what we're doing, we always want to eventually scale up and do more and that we can. But right now, we're sticking to the budget that we can get.
Well,
and making stuff.
I've been working with a lot of low budget filmmakers, and one of the new endeavors I'm involved in, we connect with a lot of indie filmmakers who are making material for Tubi. They're making also vertical videos, vertical content for Reel Shorts and some other platforms that make vertical serialized, usually vertical videos, which I actually think is a great spot for horror. Right now, it's mostly soap opera that's on there. It's mostly like I Married a Billionaire, turned out to be a serial killer,
right?
Or, but I actually think it's a great spot for horror, because the way it works is you watch 1 or 2 minutes and then you swipe and watch another 2 minutes and then you hit a paywall eventually. Well, if we can get to that first cliffhanger, then you're going to definitely pay for the paywall. But what I've seen, at least recently, is that the people that are successful, they research their audience before they start making their movie. It's about like, I know this audience is out there. I know that they want this, and then I'm going to write that for this audience. Not like I have my vision. I have this beautiful thing that I wrote a book and I'm going to turn it into a movie. Usually it's the people that are successful are like, I know this audience wants this, and so I'm going to give them what they want. And like we talked with one guy who made a movie on, I don't know what he made it on, maybe $10,000, and he's already had $100,000 in 3 months on Tubi in returns. So and that's only the first 3 months. He's got a long way to go, and he just made another movie. And it's because he found mostly on social media, on Facebook groups, he found those people that were the ones that are looking for that particular type of movie. And he was like, I can make that kind of movie. He went to his wife. His wife wrote the script based on what he wanted. And he directed the movie and borrowed stuff and friends and favors and everything. This first one, I think he actually got some financing for a second one, but he made a lot of money on it in a very short amount of time because he satisfied his audience. And I think that's really important. I think that's something that that TV people understand, that that television is not going to put the kind of investment necessary into making a series unless they're really sure that there's an audience for it. They focus grouped it. They've checked, and that's another reason that they only, they make so many things out of existing properties, things that are reboots or remakes or things that have a built-in fan base already because they have a comic book that was very successful, a graphic novel series that was very successful. I've seen some things that I really love that were based on comic books that I, thought were great, but they didn't have an audience. But if that audience is there, if you have, something that is built in, it's very likely it's going to be successful if you execute it properly as a film or a TV show.
Yeah. That's something I'm trying to work with the guys. Is I also do another show where I talk to independent comic book creators. I go, I think it'd be interesting is you take our indie horror group and we also make comics for stuff that we don't have the budget to, but we have like that proof of concept. Here's the movies we have. Here's the stories we want to tell in the future, and just kind of attack it that way.
I mean, I definitely think that's a great approach because a comic book is almost like a storyboard, right? You're already started like halfway there. In fact, I like I do get, even though I'm not really a real producer in the sense that like I don't have money like to produce things, or I don't have financing, be backers, but I still get pitched things all the time. And one of the last things I got pitched was like 2 comic books. They were like, I'm not even gonna tell you a story, just here's the comic books, here's the graphic novels. And they were adult graphic novels, and I thought they were really good. I don't know what happened with the project, but I think also like graphic novel gives you freedom to make it big, like expensive, where like a lot of people will write an indie horror movie and they'll be like, oh, I got to keep it all in one house, or I got to keep it. Now there is something to be said about the Monster in the House movie, right?
Right.
That works, and it's a genre. But if you're writing a comic book, changing the background is just drawing something different. It's not going to a new location and having a whole bunch of new actors, and so I think that's great to another thing I tell writers anyway that I've worked with is like, don't write to the budget, write your story, make it what it is, and then we can bring it down to the budget. We can always, cut it down, but we can never expand it. It's much harder to like go, oh, well, let's make this bigger by adding a location. Well, it's going to be inorganic and weird that you just make the location out of nowhere. But if it exists in the story to begin with, you can always go, okay, well, we can't afford to shoot at this location, but maybe we'll just shoot this little thing that connects with a different location, or maybe we'll shoot something like in a flashback, so it's less. We only need like 1-2 walls. We don't need the whole set. We only need a corner. There's always ways to scale back, but scaling up is hard.
And I think you can see that because you see some people that, and I'm not going to name any names, but have done independent horror things on YouTube. That's a 5-10 minute story, and all of a sudden they're doing a 90-minute movie, and it didn't need to be.
Right.
I think that kind of the scale up that you would be talking about is that maybe you didn't need to go that big. Maybe you could have done a short. There's nothing wrong with short movies.
Yeah. I think you have to be careful with the length of your short movie. One thing I've learned with going to a lot of festivals is, and I advise people this, find out what length short films make it into festivals, because there's this weird, like very short films are easy to program, 3-4 minutes. 20-minute films are not hard to program either, because you can take one 20-minute film and a group of smaller films and put them all together for like a hour or hour and a half long stretch. But the like 30-minute film, not sure where that belongs. And like maybe the 18-minute film, where it's not quite like that substantial, or 17, 15, 16 in there. It's not really short, but it's not like a full sandwich. It's like, it's like half a sandwich, and you're kind of like, So, I would look at again, this is about finding your audience, right? If you like, okay, I want to take this to a particular horror movie festival, or I want to take this to this festival, look at the length of the films that are being accepted. And, look, it could be that they're accepting any length of films. It doesn't matter. But I see patterns of very short films and kind of substantial films, and then features, right? Sort of, I've had people like tell me they want to make a 45-minute film. How do you program that? Like, what is that exactly? It's like kind of an episode of television. It's not quite a feature. So yeah, find your audience, where you're going to show it, like, and back into what you want to do.
That's awesome. Yeah, except we do. I have short stories I don't think I can do in full length, but we also done like a grindhouse style found footage, where there's 2 movies that are about 40-ish minutes each.
Right, but that's 2 halves of the sandwich, right?
Yep.
you have like a half of bacon, lettuce, and tomato, and then you have of a grilled cheese, right? You have 2 totally different halves that fit together, but they're both on rye bread, I guess, or whatever.
Yep. Yeah.
The grindhouse thing is a great, like, people love that. People love anthology films. I've seen, or there's 4 20-minute films or something like that. That will work too. Although less often. I like the double feature thing. Like, I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah. We also we did a 5 episodes TV show where it's all anthology TV. So it's like Tales from the Crypt, but found footage. So like 20-25 minute stuff. We did that season 1 last year. We're working on season 2, hopefully upcoming here soon. So
yeah, and I mean, particularly with something repetitive and like, or that is repeating, people love consistency. Like, that's why your show has a lot of viewers, because they know what to expect. They know the length of the show. They know the consistency of it is what people come back for. They're like, once they like it, they're like, okay, I'll come see it every time. So.
Yeah. All right, so Leland, before we get into the wrap-up questions, now you have a plugable. Do you want to go into your plugable now?
Yeah, so this really ties in with independent filmmaking and filmmaking in general. We hit a real slow patch during the strike this year, and I turned to my partner and wife, and I said, what can we do that can make my job more efficient? And she said, I don't know, what can you do? What is it that's your pain point? And I realized that one of the things that is a sort of pain point for me is that there's this really slow and totally manual process of making shot lists. And I hate typing, and the shot list is going to have a lot of very similar shots in it throughout the movie. There's going to be a cool shot here or there in each scene, or there's going to be like maybe a scene's all just one shot. But most of movies and television is people talking, and so those shots are going to be very similar. So I created a tool called Shotcraft, which a creative assistant. You can upload your scripts in a PDF form, or you can copy and paste it into the app, and you get a shot list right away. And that shot list is real basic, but it allows you a starting point, and then you can make it your own. You got click and drag boxes for what lens you're going to use, whether it's on a dolly, whether there's special effects or visual effects, and then you can output it, share it with your team. You can add images if you happen to make storyboards or make images that you like to attach to your shot list. And people tell me that it gets them like 80% of the way there. And it works for professionals that are under the gun. I've heard that so our users have said, you know, I lost the day because we lost a location. We had everything planned and we had to start all over again. Or new script pages came in last minute, and it was like, you know, 11:30 at night. We just finished a 12-hour day, had to be back on set the next morning. It sped up that process for them. And then I've also heard from younger filmmakers, more starting out their career, that helped give them some guidance and made them feel like they weren't working in a vacuum. Because at the point when you're doing that shot list, you might not be quite at the prep stage yet. You might not have a whole team to work with. And so this gives them something to just get started and get rid of those sort of blank page blues. So that's the tool. It's called Shotcraft, Shotcraft, K instead of C. And you can try it for free. It's if you like it, it's $20 a month. So not a lot of money, and you can cancel it any time, or you can get it for a year for $150. And you know, it's been pretty interesting. We've gotten it. It works in any language. So we've had users from all over the world, and it's pretty cool. I think you'll like it.
Yeah, I definitely gonna check that out, because you know I had a writing session with my producer as we're gearing up to do our own stuff and writing more in 2025. I have to check it out now, honestly, just because we are first time on the writing side and doing it all in one swoop here. I've helped out writing and AD and all that stuff too, but not from scratch.
Well, I'm gonna put it in our chat here, our private chat, so your producer, so to speak, behind the scenes can drop it in the you know, the box or whatever below.
Yep, I can do that too. Yeah. I have full control too. Awesome. Yeah, that's great. I'll honestly going to talk to the horror dads about that, because we probably could use it. For sure.
I hope let me know what you think of it. We're always making improvements on it, and you know, we launched it a year ago, and it's been a great ride. Like we're really looking forward to this year and really scaling it up.
Awesome. So, Leland, let's get into these wrap-up questions we have for you. You ready? And I'm interested to hear, because this is our 70th episode.
Wow.
69 people have answered it one way. Only one person's answered the other.
Okay, and I have to say, I watched a couple of parts of your episodes, but I didn't get to this part, so I have no idea what you're going to ask me right now.
Practical or CGI?
Practical.
Yep. Now, see, there you go. It's only one person has ever said CGI. It's because he does CGI effects. So
look, anything that you can lock in on the day in camera, you know, you've got it, right? It's not about that CGI can't potentially do something better, and if you have it planned that way, that's great. But if you can lock it in on that day and oh, I got it. Like I've got it. I don't need to do anything else. Or maybe I just need to tweak this one thing in post. That's always better.
Yeah. I think it's better for actors too to have a tangible thing just to work
100%.
with.
Yeah, 100%.
All right. So if you got a call at 2 a.m. that said you can do this movie right now, you have to leave right now. What is your ideal franchise or IP that you'd want to work in next? Like, would you want to do a Marvel movie? Would you want to do the next James Bond movie?
Well, I don't know. It would have to be something serious. It wouldn't be a comedy. It would be a drama. I would love to do an action thriller.
Okay.
I think that would be a blast. The next movie that I'm talking to a guy about is a horror movie in Pacific Northwest, and I'm speaking to him on Monday. But an action thriller with the kind of budget where you can have people thrown out of trains and do some really crazy stunts.
Mm-hmm.
I'd love to do that kind of stuff. There's a TP that I admired that got to do a movie called Carry On recently, and I love that movie. It was so much fun. It's stupid Hollywood stuff, but it was totally fun. And like, I'm caveman in my movie taste. Like, I like simple movies that tell a great story and that keep you engaged. I don't always like to, I like more intellectual movies too sometimes, but I don't always like that. I'm always going to enjoy that caveman simple movie that tells a great story and keeps me engaged. And so that's the kind of movie I want to make next, if possible, if I got that call at 2 a.m. And I've gotten that call at 2 a.m. And usually it's not something I want to do, but when they call you at 2 a.m., you can usually negotiate a pretty good rate because
there you go.
They're in trouble.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. That's awesome. But I also have to ask now, with you talk about caveman movies, what's your favorite scary movie?
It's got to be The Shining.
Yes.
I was thinking about, because I heard one of your guests talking about what got them into like horror movies.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to think back to like the first couple of movies that I saw as a kid, and that like really caught my attention. And the first movie is Fantasia, and Fantasia scared the crap out of me. Like, just the Sorcerer's Apprentice is actually pretty scary.
Mm-hmm.
And for a kid who was like, I don't know, 6, 7, something like that, like, I was terrified of that. And then another movie that really scared the crap out of me, which I didn't get to see in the theater when it came out, but I got to see it a little bit later in the theater, was Invasion of the Body Snatchers, the remake of that with Donald Sutherland.
The 1978 one. Yeah.
They wouldn't take me when I was too young, but when I got a little bit older, like teenager, then I saw it and in a revival like movie theater, and that was a really scary movie.
Yeah, I thoroughly enjoy that movie. I have the original, that remake, and the 90s remake on Laserdisc, because I'm a huge physical media collector.
Right.
And I just love comparing all three of them.
Yeah, Laserdisc was a great format. It really high fidelity, but again, that was standard def, so it wouldn't be that amazing today compared to what we see.
Well, I mean, it's true, but I still collect them. So as my producer, we have that.
Do you remember?
Fascination.
Do you remember a Laserdisc game called Dragon's Lair?
Yes.
Yeah, that was great. I loved Dragon's Lair. It was like 50 cents to play, though. It was a lot. It was expensive to play that in the arcade. Maybe even more. It was a lot.
Yeah, that ability to play that today's world, that Laserdisc player that plays it is like $2,000. My wife would kill me if I spent that money on the system. She would come down here and murder me. I know she would. So
that would be the end of your movie making career, right there.
Exactly. All right, so Leland, any advice for people getting into the film industry?
There's a lot of roads in, depending on what you want to do. You can, if you're lucky and really have great material. I mean, lately I think my mantra is like know your audience.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's my new mantra, because I've seen so many filmmakers, they make something that they love that is interesting to them. But if they can make something that it's about storytelling, so if you can tell a story that connects with people, find out what stories they want to hear, that they want told, and then make that story, but make that your own. I think that's probably the best advice I can give filmmakers. And then like probably everybody says that is like get on set and like learn from being on set.
Yep.
When I was first starting out, the first job I did was as a grip intern, whatever that means. And I said to them, look, I'll do anything on set you want. I'll carry water. I'll hang out with the makeup artists, the costume. I don't care. But just don't put me on a corner with a walkie off the set, because I won't learn anything. And I'm here for free or for $50. I need to learn something. And that means being on the set and then pay attention to everything you can. You're not going to understand everything right away. But when you can, when it's appropriate, ask questions. When there's downtime, there's a lot of downtime on set. Ask questions, find out. There's no dumb questions. Find out what it is you're interested in, and don't make too many suggestions, but ask a lot of questions.
Yeah. I like that. Yeah. Cause I about 2 years ago, almost 2 years ago, I was invited to be on set for an independent horror film.
Mm-hmm.
I go, sure, why not? I drove, half a state away south and just was on a pot farm shooting a movie at 2 a.m. I go, all right, this is pretty cool. And I've been with them since. So
yeah, well, I mean, that is the way you make real connections, is in the real. Like, you're gonna make it on set with people. You're not gonna make those kind of deep connections because people want to know two things: you're hardworking, you show up on time. Those are actually more than two things. And the third thing: are you cool hang? Like, because being on set's going to take like 12 hours every day. You might have a few shorter days here or there, but it's mostly going to be like 12-hour days. People are going to want people that they like hanging out with. And so, try to socialize and be as personable as you can. I don't think it's a good idea to just go to work, do your job, go home. We're all in this for the most part because we love telling stories, whether we're a carpenter or grip or makeup artist or cinematographer, director. We're all helping tell the story. And so like there's a common purpose that we all have, and that makes us all kind of respect each other in a way, whether you're carrying coffee to the director and the producers, or whether you're operating the camera. You're all a part of the same team. So make the most of those environments and try to socialize and learn as much as you can. I think those are the best way out there. I'm not even suggesting film school, although I think film school is good because you learn a lot of fundamentals there, and those things will translate to when you start to make your own projects. But it's nothing compared to being on set, in my opinion.
Yeah. I've been toying with the idea of going to film school. In high school, I worked in theater. I did the lights, the sound, the set design, everything that I could learn, and I did that for theater.
But then that with theater, it's the same thing. You're all involved. You're all a team that's involved. But it's better in a way because it's longer, and you're doing a show like night after night. And like a theater project can last like 3-6 months or something like that. And so you really get to know those people. And when it ends, you're like, what happened to my team? I heard one story about a movie called The Mirror Has Two Faces with Barbra Streisand, and that movie was such a mess. It took like almost a year to shoot. They fired like 2 DPs. It was just a mess. It went down and came back up again. And afterwards, they had support groups for the crew to like get together because they missed each other so much.
Wow. That's good though. It's good. You know, I think I like working with the people I work with. I like meeting new people too, just because it's fun. I enjoy doing what I'm doing, and you know, I hope I get the reputation of being like a really nice guy that people want to work with.
Yeah.
You know. So, all right. So, Leland, give us your pluggers. Where can people find you and follow you and learn all your new stuff that you have coming out?
Well, I guess they can just go to, I don't know, like just look me up, just Google me and see what I'm up to. You know, I don't like, because these projects aren't my project so much, I don't promote them on social media so much, except for Shotcraft, which is really my project. You know, just look me up on Instagram. And Instagram, I'm Krane Shot with a K. And on social media, I'm just myself, Leland Krane. So, and feel free to reach out if you're interested in what I have to say. I do some teaching also up in Maine sometimes and in other places. So, and I'm always looking to meet new filmmakers and see what they're up to. So, yeah, feel free to reach out.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Leland, for coming out. I hope you had a good time.
Yeah, it was blessed.
All right, and everyone, thank you again for watching. Make sure to share this out. If you're watching this live, watch it later on. Hit that like button. We like to hear from you guys. And thank you. Follow us on all social media at Pod Out at Night. And we'll see you next time. And don't get lost in the void. Good night.